Let's bring this meeting to order. This is the Carson City Advisory Board to Manage Wildlife. It's 4 o'clock. We're going to bring the meeting to order. We're here. We have a quorum. Doug is going to be late, although he's on his way, so he will be late. So shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Chairperson Green?
Here.
Vice Chair Yannick?
Here.
Member Beamer?
Here. Here.
Member Stewart?
Here.
Quorum is present. Quit doing that to me.
Next on the agenda is public comment. We have nobody in the audience today, so we can move on from there. I would like to say something at this point, though, for myself. At the NDOW meeting, I made a mistake that was my fault and my fault alone. I forgot to report on one of the line items for the bow hunters. I made the mistake. I've apologized to the bow hunters, and if anybody asks about it, tell them it was my fault and give them my phone number. Have them call me. I just plain old misaligned and it didn't get done. But
what was the issue?
The issue was on the early hunt. I didn't report on it as we were supposed to ask for 20 and it's 15, and I just plain missed the line.
Okay.
Yeah, and I called Jim Davis on Monday after the meeting once I noticed it and apologized, and he said no problem. So, and that was for area 192.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was like I said, it was my fault. I just plain old missed it. I should have used a ruler. Any other comment? Apparently no public. Okay, we'll move on for the approval of minutes from the meeting of April 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 5. Do we have any, item number 6. Do we have any disclosures to make for this meeting?
We need number 5 is the adoption of the agreement, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Speaking, getting my glasses on and getting the right spot. Do we have any comments on the agenda for today?
I move to adopt the agenda as written, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we'll go on to disclosures. Any disclosures to be made on this event? I see none. We'll move on. Item number 7 was an update on the activity report from the Urban Wildlife Committee. The only thing I have to say about that is that the Ash Canyon Road is open. It's easy access. I haven't been to the top yet, but I've started up a couple of times and then had phone calls and came back. But it was almost like freeway activity the 2 times I tried to go up because it's been so long since it was open. Have any of the rest of you been up?
I've been up there. It's good.
Yeah,
It ain't great, but it's good.
I will say that it's the best I've ever seen it. I've been up probably about 20 times since it opened up, and taking groups of fishermen in there, and has been no issues whatsoever. And there's a lot of people using it.
Yeah.
A lot of people using it. So.
You know, it's either feast or famine. You know, it was not too bad when it was a little difficult to get up. But when it's easy to get up, you get a lot of locals not wanting to drive somewhere else to fish, and you got to get there early and do your thing and get out of there.
Well, yeah, that second time I went up or tried to go up, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure what was going on, but I had more runners up there than anything else. I must have passed 30 people going up and back, running the road. So
we've
it
seen the
was, you
same
got to be
thing.
careful if you go up there.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing, which is great. That's what it's for, is for everybody to use. I might make the recommendation, Mr. Chair, just to maybe table this until member Martin shows up to the meeting. If he doesn't show up, then we can go ahead and close it out, but he may have something that might be of importance. I will just say that there has been, I got contacted by a individual that lives on the west side of town up off of Thompson Street, asking if the city has any kind of plan to help deal with the urban deer issue. And so gave me a great opportunity to talk to them about it and try and solicit them to, be constructively involved, if you will. And they really had a desire to do that, and mainly from the standpoint that to keep people from feeding the deer and just from an educational standpoint. And so I did tell them that we would, have this meeting. She's not here actually today, but I did tell them if anything came up, that I would keep her in mind and invite her to, if we ever had any further subcommittee meetings or anything like that. I don't know. Did Doug at the last meeting report on anything at all? I don't think anything's really going on right now. I do know that the department, their folks are actively sending out information about urban wildlife, and they're doing a great job. And I really think that the city has kind of looked at that and said, oh, well, the state's taking it, so if they need our help, they'll get to us.
Yeah, but the city still has some stuff out there on their website.
For sure.
About living with the deer, which is wonderful, is people just need to slow down and stop feeding them.
Yeah.
So, that's my opinion.
I agree 100%, so, all right.
Okay, thank you. And we will table that until Doug gets here, because he's usually and he's been up Ash Canyon a couple of times too. He sent out a bunch of pictures, if any of you saw those, Okay, let's moving on to item number 8. This is the Carson City Advisory Board to manage wildlife consent agenda items for their meeting, which will be this weekend down in Dyer. It's items 8A through 8M. Does anybody have any items they would like pulled? Doug already told me he had none.
Before I move, I say anything, does anybody have an appetite to discuss any of the upland game and fur bear season bag limits? I'm willing to pull it if for just discussion purposes, but if nobody has anything pressing, it all looks good to me. Mm-hmm. I just was thinking, I know there was some discussion on the bobcat. There are some regulation changes on the bobcat stuff. There was some. I was sent an email by someone from who was a trapper. I don't know if they're from the Trappers Association. They kind of made it sound like either they belonged to it or they were, had something to do with the Trappers Association. And mainly what it said was that they were against SB 365, which I think is that the trap?
Is it the trap registration?
That is the trap registration.
And which item are you?
That one is SB 364 for 8G. Yeah. So it was SB 364. My reply back to them from a legislative standpoint, really, the only thing you can do is petition the legislature in the upcoming session to get that changed. It is what it is. It's already been passed. The commission, all of the department is doing is trying to set the regulation to be in line with that. So really, there's nothing there's nothing really that we can do about that. I mean, like I said, it's already been passed, and the governor has given his stamp of approval on it. The legislature has approved it. Really, there's nothing that can be done by anybody on this board. And my suggestion would be then, if nobody wants to discuss any of that, I thought I'd throw it out there just for process standpoint, but if nobody wants to discuss it, then I'm good accepting the consent agenda. I'm prepared to move to accept the consent agenda as is.
Yeah, I've heard from nobody on that at all. I even, in fact, a while back, I talked to someone who does some trapping. 8G, we haven't pulled it
We
yet.
haven't pulled anything yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're on 8 right now, but Mr. Chair, if you're prepared to take a motion, if nobody wants to pull anything out,
Yeah.
I'm prepared to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as is without pulling anything off, and advise the commission that we're in support of everything they're trying to do.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Yeah. Doug better hurry. Okay, we're up to agenda number 9. For possible action, discussion regarding any non-regulatory agenda items that might be part of the June 29th and 30th meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife. Any comment on that?
I would just like to ask Member Yannick, is there anything that we need to know from a fiscal standpoint? I noticed what you proposed for our budget. It seems pretty much in line.
Yeah, it was an interesting meeting we had on the 15th at the Endow office. When you look at what each county spent, how much they still have in their treasury, and what the augmentation is, you start seeing that a lot of the communities, a lot of the counties, didn't spend a lot of money. I'm sorry. A lot of the counties this past fiscal year did not spend a lot of money, which means one of two things. Either they didn't attend the meeting,
They're not
or they
turning
didn't, or they didn't submit an expense report. I think it was the former rather than the latter. And I plan to talk to the chairman of the commission to put on a advisory board workshop, primarily to talk about the issue of attendance at county advisory board meetings, the difficulty that a lot of the outlying rural communities have in, number one, finding people to volunteer, and finding people who will travel great distances just to attend the advisory board meeting, let alone the commission meeting. There are, and I won't go into it here, I'll do it at the commission meeting. There are a number of services that local communities can use for free conference calling. The problem with a conference call is you have to make it accessible to the public. And there's nothing wrong. It's a toll-free number.
You put it right on your agenda.
Yeah, you put it on the agenda if you want. We're gonna meet telephonically. If you want to participate, here's the number to dial in. So I'm going to bring that up because it's a shame to not have participation from the various counties. The whole reason why we're here is to get local input. And, you know, most of the hunting is not done in our backyard. And when you look at some of the rural communities that are not meeting or not meeting regularly, these are the people that we really need the input from, because they're dealing with the herds, they're dealing with damage, they're dealing with fire, all kinds of issues, and we need their input, is what I'm saying. So that's when I'm going to bring it up to the chairman about trying to put a workshop together and come up with some ideas on how we can enliven the participation of the county advisory boards.
I had a conversation with the chair from the Nye County Board just a month ago, and she had missed a couple of meetings because she had some illness. But exactly what you're talking about is one of the problems she's been having, because Nye County is so long and skinny.
One of the biggest counties in the state.
Yeah, and she's up in Tonopah. Most of the county's down there next to Clark County.
Or Pahrump, yeah.
Yeah, and she has a very difficult time getting people to even come to the meetings. So she generally, if it hadn't been for her illnesses, she generally has the meetings down in Pahrump, because she can't get any participation if she doesn't. And we were talking about that, because she feels like a one-person cheerleading team, and when she doesn't go, nobody else does either. And she was kind of frustrated.
Well, that's primarily the reason when I look at what people are not spending. We want to make the money available to come to the meetings. We don't make money available for transportation to local advisory board meetings. Mm-hmm. So that's why I thought about conference calling, some other means of communication, or rotate where the meeting is, because you can public notice if it's going to be in this town or that town, move it around so everybody doesn't have to travel great distances, and make it more amicable to the members and to the public who we're trying to get to be members.
Yeah, we're probably the only advisory board in the entire state that only has one town.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's what I plan to do in addition to talking about budget and what we're going to do with the augmentation. I'm going to bring that up to the chairman, and hopefully we can get a work session put together and get some ideas going and see if we can improve things.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, to Mr. Yannick, so how did we look? I mean, for Carson City, did we have money left over in our?
Yeah, our augmentation, Carson City had a reported cash balance of $2,496. The budget request this year was for $3,686, so our augmentation is only $1,742.50. And this year, I have a couple of these. Share it with her. You can see that a lot of like Esmeralda, well, we took all Esmeralda's money last year. I thought they were going to get invigorated, but it never came to pass.
Do they even have a board?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought that was the case.
No.
Story County as well, they don't have one either?
Well, they haven't put in they didn't report a cash balance. They didn't put in a budget request. So I don't know what Story's doing. Are they just folding up their tent? And
Same with Nye.
Yeah.
Same with Nye. They didn't put anything in, but I know they have a semi-active board.
Yeah.
So.
And maybe because they have such a big balance forward. I mean, I could see not requesting additional funds if they have a balance forward, because that should go into their balance ledger unless we...
No, the budget request should still be submitted, even if they have a lot of money, because it gives you a false indication of what it costs to run the 17 county advisory boards. So if we don't go to the state, ask for money, they're going to say, all of a sudden, next year we go with $20,000 more. They'll look at us and say, what do you mean?
Yeah, sure.
So it's, I commend people who don't put a expense report in, but it's a false indication of what it costs to run that county advisory board.
It really is, and so I guess that's my point in bringing this up, Gil, is that, we can only take care of our side of the street, right?
Right.
So it's just super, super important, and I'm guilty, just like the last guy, there's times when I have gone to meetings and I have not
We've all done it.
put a expense report in.
Especially
and
when they're here locally,
yeah, I mean, if I could drive to Reno or Douglas, it's not worth my time to go through it, but that's bad on my part. We all should be putting in expense reports so that we can show what it actually costs to be able to run this board, right? And you're absolutely right. I mean, we just need to be, I think, a little bit more cognizant of that. And even if we have multiple people go to a board meeting, I have yet to see where we've run out of money. In the 3 years I've been on this board, there hasn't been a year yet we've run out of money. So my suggestion is that we can manage it as we go, and if we have to do a work program to bring more money into the plan, into our budget account, that's easy to do that. I mean, and the state will take care of that for us. So don't be afraid that if you guys take time out of your day to go to a commission meeting, put a darn expense in for it. Get per diem, get all that stuff.
Well, when you look at the fact that this meeting in Dyer and the next meeting is in Caliente.
Yeah.
Now, that's for a piece. So there'll be some mileage bills building up to attend those meetings. It's all a function of where you live and where the meetings are being held.
Right.
And the main thing that I will discuss in Dyer, aside from the cold hard truth of what the budget is to really impress upon the commission about we really need to do something to get the public to feel like they need to participate, and their comments really mean something, because if we don't hear from them, then we're going to listen to somebody else. And I remember meeting after meeting that we attended where people, talked about things, and it went right over the top of people's heads. They didn't do anything about it. And the commission is there to assist. I mean, we bring them issues and they make decisions. Sometimes they'll bring up issues of their own, but most of the issues has to come from the communities. And we want to see that.
And they want it. They want that stuff, right? So I guess that's my point, is that, we have had members of the public in the past kind of squawk about us traveling and going to board meetings and stuff. What they don't understand about the budgetary process is that if we don't show the true cost, when the time comes when we do need to do that, it's not going to be there, and we're going to be questioned on it, right? So, we have to illustrate what the true costs of this board is, and my suggestion would be that all the board members consider that going forward. That like when you go to Dyer and you tow your trailer down there, don't be afraid to expense that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it should be something that should be completely reimbursed. None of us are going to get rich being on this board, nor is it in the intention to do that, right? But darn it, we do need to illustrate what costs are associated with having meetings in some of these, in Dyer, right? And in Caliente too. So don't be afraid to do that, I guess is what I'm saying.
There is a motel. Okay, now we're up to item number 10. Possible action, discussion on possible action regarding the advisory board commitments for the June 29th and 30th, which we were just talking about. I am going, definitely going to Dyer. and I'm not sure yet about Caliente for myself. Can I hear from anybody else on the issues?
I don't know whose idea that was, but holy heck.
I'm not throwing my hat in the ring.
We can, since Member Martin's not here, we could just all take a vote and
They can
say
send
that
him.
he's going to go? Is that okay with that, or? I know he would appreciate that, right?
No, I don't think he wanted to do that either.
Yeah. So on the 10th and 11th,
I can go. I can commit for August 10th and 11th.
I was gonna say that might be a good one to call into.
Yeah. Yeah, I can commit to it, though. I have other things I can do. I'll probably make the trip through Ely and then down.
okay, and I can just say that, that if for some reason you can't go, I can try and be a backup for that. The problem is that we have a committee meeting the following week, and that week prior for me is kind of a buster at work, so, but, you know, if no one else can go, if for some reason you can't go, I'll be a backup. How's that?
Okay, thank you. And I will commit to that one then without, I just looked at the calendar and I can go. My life is dictated by calendar.
You got it.
Item number 11, future agenda items. Is there anything anybody has that we would like to put on the agenda for the future?
So what's the next meeting, Gil? What, do you guys recall, or Mr. Chair or Kirk, do you guys recall what we're going to be discussing at the next meeting? Is that the waterfowl limit or waterfowl sets?
I don't know.
I think it is. I think that's when we set the waterfowl. Doug Martin is the one who really knows that. He's on top of that stuff. But I don't have any future items. I would like to see about getting a. Actually, I do. Take that back. Have we gotten any kind of an update on the Carson City rifle and pistol range and the projects that they had slated to go out there? They had it. They got the gate up. They got the electronic gate up and stuff. But did we ever hear anything else? Hit your button. Did we hear anything else on the pit toilets or the classroom?
Yeah, the last thing, they had closed down the range for 3 or 4, almost a week, for them to do the foundation work for the pit toilets.
So it's a go then.
Yes, definitely.
I think the toilets are actually already in
Okay.
because the building's built. I was just out there a few weeks ago. They extended the berms on that far end about another 6 feet out and raised them probably another 10 feet,
Oh, the ones around the bend.
the ones around the bend. And it looks like they've cleaned up the rifle and the pistol range. So it was a whole lot nicer.
So you're saying the berms on the long gun range?
No, the berms
And the
around,
individual-
not the long gun, the
Oh, but
pistol. and then
individual
they-
bays.
Yeah, the individual bays on the back row, they've all been raised up. It looks like they've done some work on the long gun range also, but I didn't even bother stopping there. I went around the corner, so.
Okay.
But yeah, it's looking pretty good out there.
They had a small fire out there last week, and now this is just rumor mill. I was told by one person though that that it was not a shooter from the range that started it. It was somebody off range that started. It just happened to be next to the range.
Well, I think they had two of them because they had the dump fire, and then shortly after that was another one. And I think it was because they were talking about some dozers working in that area, so it might have been a dozer that actually started that fire. So thank goodness it wasn't a shooter.
Yeah, for sure. My goodness.
Okay, I will, even if Doug doesn't make it, I'll get in touch with him and find out about the waterfowl thing for the August meeting.
Yeah, and maybe if we could just, I'm going to be teaching a concealed carry permit class out at the range here in 2 weeks, and so I can be prepared to give a report on the pit toilets if you want me to.
Okay, yeah, please do. I'll be out there between now and
I'll inspect them and everything for you.
Check their workmanship.
There you go. That's, just for the record, so everybody understands, those pit toilets at Gate all came from sportsman funds, right? I mean, the majority of that came from sportsman funds through the Pittman-Robinson Act, and so pretty cool that, the city's actually utilizing that, which there has been some real pushback on that, utilizing that because of the in-kind match, but there's so many people in the public that are willing to donate their time and service to be support for that in-kind match, right? It doesn't always have to come from monetary sources, as what I wish the city would realize that, I think, a little bit better. But
I know one of the people with the city said that one of the problems that they had all along was simply manpower because of the damage from the storms and stuff. They didn't have the manpower to give out there when they were doing other things. So it wasn't that they weren't keeping the range in mind, it's just they didn't have the manpower they were spread thin. So, but they had never forgotten. Okay, so much for future agenda items. I will talk with Doug on that and check on the waterfowl stuff. Now, item number 12, public comment. Anybody in the public like to say anything?
crickets.
No comment from the public. We are up to item number 13, adjournment. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned. Ta-da. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.